fellow Toastmasters, Mr. Toastmaster, yes. Now, as the Toastmaster said, I would be talking a little bit about noise and noise levels. Now, I should expound that it's really not so bad to be without hearing. And these are some examples. For instance, if you can't hear your partner snoring anymore, if your home is directly underneath an airport or in the airport path, if the teenager next to you likes to play loud rock music, you find that you don't hear anymore what you used to pretend not to hear. Or when you are asked to mow the lawn, wash the car, clean the garage, that's all helpful. Just point at it.
Point to the computer.
On your computer.
Oh, that would happen.
F5.
What?
Your computer F5.
How do you do that?
F5.
Oh, okay. What is noise? It's really anything that's unwanted that you desire not to hear. Examples such that generally defined as unpleasant, distractful, and of course tiring and stressful. Now, we found that some examples of this is if you have two air conditioning systems and they're both at, say, 65 dB. Well, 65 dBA is not that loud. You can tolerate it. But if you've got two of them side by side, and one cycles off and on because it's a large house, maybe two places. We did one assessment at a place where we had two AC systems running. So if at all possible, I'd have a larger one running at a higher level, not have them cycle. Another example is if you have a plant, there's two fans running at slightly different speeds, for instance 61 and 60 hertz. Well, if you ever listen to that, if you have two fans, you actually hear a beat. And that beat is equal to the difference in those speeds. 61 minus 60 is 1 hertz, so you'll hear every second you'll hear a hover. So that's an example of noise levels that can be very disruptive, even though they're not harmful, they're just disruptive. That's really the definition of noise. What happened? Am I not doing something right?
Yes.
So I was hitting this one, but I hit this one?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, good. All right. Noise is measured generally in dB. Two people are about 3 feet apart, and you have to yell at each other. Your noise level you can guess to be around 85 or greater. That's generally a good judgment of whether your noise level is too excessive or whether you need to worry about it. Noise levels at about 140 dB is really the threshold of pain. If you experience that kind of noise that your ears hurt, such as a rock concert, and you're holding your ears like this, that's something to really watch for. Some examples of typical noise levels: quiet bedroom, 35 dBA. Now sometimes if you hear a lot of noise outside, your noise levels in the house in bedrooms 35, you hear that noise outside. Sometimes you might have a background noise inside the bedroom, such as a waterfall, to make it more tolerable. The whisper, for instance, 20 dBA, that's as much as one needs to hear. Refrigerator, 40, and here are some other examples. I tend to think that the Walkman, for instance, on the other side, actually it can be pretty high, because I find when I'm listening to this and I'm riding my bicycle next to the highway, I have to turn that thing right up because traffic noise levels are about, say, sometimes 70 dBA, and I can't hear the music, so it can be high. So be careful of that. Rules of thumb when we talk about noise, it's just everyone. Okay, my wife and I, we were in looking at a dishwasher. The question came up. We saw one dishwasher was 48 dBA, and the other one was 54. Well, that doesn't seem like a lot, but really it is. as an example, 48 is only, 52 is only 6, or 54 is only 6 dB higher than 48. So, as I said, rule of thumb, 3 dB increase is a doubling of the noise level. That's like having 2 dishwashers. Now, in this case where we were looking at a Bosch, which had 48 dBA, Whirlpool, 54, well, that's equivalent. See, for every doubling of the noise level, that's 2. So 48 plus 3 makes 51. Now you have to double that again. It's not just adding 1 more dishwasher, it's adding 2 more dishwashers. So imagine having a kitchen with 4 Whirlpool dishwashers. That's the equivalent. That's 4 Bosch dishwashers. That's how much you're hearing when you have that Whirlpool. So keep that in mind. Pay particular attention to that level in the dishwasher when you see those dBA tags. Now, likelihood of damage. Now, as I said, volume, how high the noise level is. You saw some examples of very high noise levels and low ones, highway noise. Frequency, the high pitch can be more bothersome than lower pitch. See, with a lower pitch noise isn't going to bother the hair follicles in your hearing ducts. The exposure time, the amount of hours. I'll have a slide later on showing the time levels that's good for various times. And of course, noise levels, it should not be just a concern at the workplace, also at home. For instance, snowmobiling, loud stereos. Types of hearing loss. There's you can have temporary hearing loss, and that's just for a very short time, as if you go to a rock concert, and the next day it's not so bad because you finally hear again. Permanent hearing loss can be, that's when I talk about the damage to the hair cells, something to really watch for. I'd like to tell you about something I'd like to ask you is, how do you sell a deaf man a duck?
Want to buy a duck?
I got you awake. Now, types of hearing loss. There's conductive, sensorineural. Conductive is more to do with the outside, outer ear, sometimes the middle ear. The sensorineural is the middle ear. And then you have your tinnitus. So often you hear about that when people do have noise levels. They have this ringing. And these hearing aids that you can buy actually have an active modulator which actually cancels that ringing that you hear. That's actually how they work. And they can be very effective. So without it, you can be very bothered. Just like to tell you about this middle-aged man who goes in to see the doctor. Doctor, I think I'm going deaf. What are the symptoms? Oh, that's a yellow family, father's name Homer, son's name Bart. But I don't see what that has to do with my problem. Inability to hear soft and high-pitched noises is evidence of when you got hearing loss. You have trouble understanding a conversation. You get ringing in the ears, tinnitus, as we talked about. And then others can hear something that you can't. So those are signs. If you do experience that, go get yourself checked out. What is too much? There's no cure for hearing. There's no cure for hearing damage. Normal hearing can never be restored. Hearing aids do not restore noise damage hearing. At best, they help the person a little bit. A man was bragging about his hearing aid and how great it was and how well he could hear with it. His friend asked him, "What kind is it?" 1230. examples, as I say, now, if you do know you're going to be experiencing high noise, you're operating your lawn equipment, do wear a pair of these. Generally, perhaps take a couple of pair of these, just hang it on your lawnmower. If you have a power saw that you use quite extensively, a table saw, just take it and tie it on there. And they're your personal, you're the only one generally mowing the lawn, unless in my case, my wife likes to mow it too. Well, really, she doesn't. So in that case, we should have two of these pair, his and hers. So, now long-term exposure, as I said, this is a diagram of an ear, what the inner ear and the outer ear looks like. There are actually hair follicles, as I mentioned, that move as you hear the noise. As these get damaged, that's when you have serious damage. And there is really no such thing as tough ears or getting used to it. The risk of hearing loss increases dramatically as noise levels increase. Exposures to noise levels above 115 dB is even 5 minutes is very risky. And some people sit in a rock concert at dB levels of 140. Impact, sharp impact, if you bang 140 dBA. You see, I keep talking about decibels, but it really is dBA. dBA is a weighting that they put on sound because the actual noise levels at a dB level is actually higher. But we don't hear a lot of that low frequency and that high frequency, nor does it damage our ears. Now here, I told you I was going to give you some examples of noise level exposures, what's allowable. 85, whenever you have a noise level at about 85, that's when you have to participate in the noise conservation program. All your people in your plant have to get checked out with an audiometer, I'm not quite sure how you say it. But anyway, so every 5 dB increase in noise level, your allowable exposure time reduces to a half. So you'll see going just from 85 to 90 in the plant, you're down to 4 hours. I worked at Caterpillar for a year, and just walking into the plant, I had to have noise protectors. That's how they get around that. With doing that, they can avoid having to get this regular testing on everybody. Protecting your hearing in a social context, I mentioned that loud music, toys, personal stereos. I just have this up here just as a refresher. Now hearing damage creeps up on you. Once it has happened, there is no cure. So if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one here, no one around, does it make a sound? If one is there to hear the sound, yes, it's true. No, there is no sound. However, that's provided we ignore the technical details, and I won't get into that to share for this due to the time I have. Now, there is a lot of research has been done, national research, and they term this the noise-induced hearing loss, NIHL. And they've, as I said before, they attribute it to hair follicles. And they do say that there's an endorphin that you can take to prevent noise levels, but there's still research being done on that. I just like to talk a little bit about noise. I mentioned about noise construction in the house. I just wanted to touch on this because for any of you out there that are DIYs and you're looking to buy a new window and you find that the higher noise is very loud, the thing to remember with noise levels is density stops the more dense the material, it stops the high frequency. The more the airspace stops the low frequency. It's a combination of those two materials that gives you your different ratings. And I will be handing a chart out, and hopefully you can read it, but there it gives you the various dBA levels, or in this case it's STC, that's the rating that's given. For instance, this is an example, you have 66 STC rating, that is, if your noise level outside is 100 dBA, if you have a wall that's 66, you're only going to hear 100 minus 66, that'd be 34, so that'd be tolerable. That's what that is all about. More on that on another speech night. I thank the university, material that gone from the University of Sheffield and National Institute of Occupational Slide, which I borrowed some of the slides from. And with that, I would like to turn the chair to John.